Welcome back to the Tapinfootball sort of live special again. The usual suspects. I'm joined by a few guests today. One of them is already with us. Meets from Gold Diggers podcast. How you doing today? You good? You happy?
I'm happy. I'm ecstatic, man. I'm good. 3 points, isn't it?
Listen,
big 3 points.
It's a huge 3 points, and I think, Anita, it's best that we start off with Chelsea, because obviously you lot, your first game back since Project Restart, and it's a big 3 points for you. Like, you lot have gone away to Aston Villa and you've beaten them 2-1, and you're now 5 points clear Man United. You're 9 points clear Spurs, and you're 11 points clear Chelsea. Explain to us your thoughts on the game.
So my thoughts on the game, because my internet is a bit janky. I didn't hear the last thing you said. Explain my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, just your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, so my thoughts on the game is that, okay, first off, Ruben Loftus-Cheek ain't ready. 100% he's not ready. I think we need to give him a couple more games, but I don't think we should be playing him on the ball. Like, I really don't think he should be starting. I think he should really come on as a substitute going forward anyway. As for Giroud now, yeah, I promise you, like, I used to be on Giroud's bandwagon, but now he's looking a bit funny in the light. Like, when he's chasing balls, he's not quick enough. Like, you are our centre forward. Why are you behind everybody else? Like, it's not good enough for me. It's not good enough. And even though we came away with the W, I promise you, there's so many things that's wrong. Like, I saw the difference today. Like, there was a lot of overlapping between players, and the link-up play was beautiful. It was sublime. Like, I enjoyed watching my team today. But again, we've got possession. What was the possession? Like 75-25 at half time. And we were 1-0 down. Like, we were playing like Chelsea against Barcelona in 2012. Like, it didn't make no sense. It didn't make sense. So, yeah, like, even though we got the 3 points, which I'm very happy about, don't get me wrong, like, Chelsea fans don't come for me. I'm really happy about it. It's just not good enough. The way we went out, it's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Don't you think, though, like, the signings that you've made, so Ziyech and Werner, are going to make a big difference at the top end there, like you're saying?
Listen, let them come first, yeah? Let them come. After they come, then I can talk about the difference they're going to make. Because I promise you, what's his name? Giroud's never going to start again. Tammy's never going to start again. Mount, I'm looking at Mount a little bit funny, but after today, like, he showed like he's a contender. Whatever, cool. Willian, he'll be starting for Tottenham next season by God's grace.
God forbid.
He was auditioning for Tottenham today. I promise you, he was auditioning for Tottenham today. So really, I'm at Tottenham next season. We're gonna have Ziyech take that back. The left, I hope.
Take that back. He wasn't auditioning for Tottenham.
He was auditioning for Tottenham. Do you see the crosses he was whipping in? I've never seen him whip crosses like that before, you know. He's auditioning. Mourinho, Willian link up. I'm ready for it. But God. Ziyech and Werner, I cannot wait to see them come and bench our bums. Honestly, I really can't wait. I can't wait for it. And hopefully Havertz, if I say it. Hopefully.
You need to relax with that one.
Yeah, you know what? Before I let you go, I actually thought you lot. I didn't think you lot were too bad, to be honest. I thought you lot actually did pretty well in terms of like pinning Aston Villa back. Like, it was all Chelsea. It was all you had all of the first half. But I think the problem was, whereas they were defending so narrow, they just left the ball to your wide players to keep throwing balls into the box. And with Aspilicueta, it took him like 8 tries before he finally put in a good crossing. But the minute he put a good cross in, it resulted in a goal. So
I disagree there. You know, I think Aspilicueta had one of his best games that he's had in a long time. Like, we don't see Aspilicueta whip a lot of balls in the first place. And when he does whip it in, it is met with silence. Like, I can agree there. Like, no one's on the end of that ball. But today, there was a lot of times where I saw Aspilicueta whip very good balls in, but our players were just not on. They just weren't switched on. Like, there was even a cross that Ruben Loftus-Cheek, on any normal day, he should be scoring, you know? But I don't think, like...
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like I don't think like Aspilicueta, like his crosses were, you know, dead or anything. I think the problem was more end product, and it's always been our problem. Like even though we were on the front foot, we had a lot of possession. We had to, okay, possession don't get you points, and this has been the story of our entire season. Like we always had the possession, we had the time on the ball. We are not producing anything from them, and that's why I can't wait for Ziyech to be whipping in proper crosses, and hopefully Werner to be on the end of them next season.
Fair enough. It seems one of your fellow Chelsea fans agrees with you as well. Aspi can't cross. And disclaimer, I never said he could cross. It takes him like 10 chances before he actually puts a good ball.
It's strange to me. Why is he playing ahead of Reece James still?
Personally, that's not a question I can answer. We've been asking Frank ourselves for like a couple of months now, but I get it. I do get it. When you have a back four, you need experience in that back four. Now, when you've got Dumb and Dumber as centre backs, you need someone that's a little bit more level-headed. You need someone on the pitch, and he is our captain at the end of the day. Like you don't just bench a captain like that for a youngster. The person who should not have sniffed the pitch today is Marcus Alonso. I cannot understand why he still starts for Chelsea. That is the main problem and the main issue we need to address. Frank Lampard, I want answers.
Fair enough. Well, Neat, thanks for your insights. Always as entertaining as ever. So we got now, but it was thank you for coming on.
Of course, guys. Love you guys.
See ya.
Don't forget to subscribe to their channel, everyone. Bye.
See ya. All right, guys. So I'm gonna bring in Lucas, who's a Everton fan. Lucas, how you doing?
Good, thanks, boys. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for coming on as well.
No problem.
I know, obviously, we're gonna get onto the derby now, but before that, I just wanted us to touch on Aston Villa now because it's a round the table form anyway. But Aston Villa now, they're proving that it doesn't matter whether you play at home or not. You're not gonna. This lockdown home advantage means nothing because they've played 2 games now. They've only scored once. They lost today against Chelsea despite taking the lead, and they're in that relegation battle. And they've got some reasonably tough fixtures coming up against teams around them. Do you think that they're in a position where they can actually stay up this season?
They're going down.
I think you're right. I think they got the hardest run out of all of them. I quite like Villa, actually. I'm hoping they stay up. But yeah, I think we've seen from the Bundesliga that home advantage, it just isn't really a thing now. And it's kind of, you've got to deal with things in a different way. And I think I'd like to see them stay up, but they have got some tough games and they're just not keeping the ball enough. You know, Jack Grealish isn't getting in the games at all. You know, I don't know. He's got obviously a lot of things going on in behind the scenes. You might think that might play a part, but I don't know.
I think he's the only player for Villa who's turned up. To be honest,
really,
I think he's been at his imperious best. But to be honest, Villa in the 2 games I've seen them play, they've been nothing short of poor.
Yeah, no.
When he got on the ball, I thought he's been okay with it.
For sure, and I agree, and that's why I just think they need to get him involved more because that is where their threat comes from, and I think they haven't been doing that at all. But to be fair, today I thought more that Chelsea were really good rather than Villa. I thought Kante just did not allow them to get out their own half. He cleared everything up, and it made it impossible for them to get up the pitch. And I think obviously they got their goal, but I think more Chelsea were really good today, and I was quite impressed than anything else.
Yeah. With Villa, I'm worried for them as well because whenever I watch them, I can't see where a goal's coming from.
Yeah.
Their strike force is weak. The midfielders don't score too many goals. Obviously, McGinn was doing okay earlier on in the season, but he's just come back from a long-term injury himself. I can't see, because they leak goals. They're always going to leak goals, but I can't see how they're going to score more goals than they let in.
Yeah. I mean, Davies up front as well. He's a handful. He is a tough, he's a tough striker to play against, I think. But yeah, they're just not creating those chances to get goals.
Yeah. So Lucas, I think I'm just going to rattle through some of the weekend's fixtures as well. So I think the next fixture I obviously want to touch on was your boys today as well, who literally just just finished with a 0-0 draw against Liverpool. Now, this was a really good. Let me not go over the top, but this was another good performance against Liverpool now, because since Carlo Ancelotti's come in, you lot went to Anfield in the FA Cup, arguably the better side in the day, and probably should have won that game. Yet you end up on the losing side, courtesy of a stun from, I think it was Curtis Jones. I think
it was against their reserves. and
then today again, defend really well, make it difficult for Liverpool to actually penetrate your defense, create chances at the other end, and you still can't stick the ball in the back of the net. So tell us your thoughts on the game today.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty uneventful, but I think Jamie Carragher said it well after the game that for Everton, that's a fair enough point. Do you know what I mean? Against the champions, elect. But we did set up to allow them to have the ball, and they were limited to almost no chances. And then when we did go forward, we had the better chances in the end. I think for the first time over this, like the restart, I think the fans played a part. I think because in games like that, the rivalry is between the fans, and I think it lacked that kind of edge from the crowd, and that kind of allowed the game to be a bit mellow and a bit kind of half what it would have been. And I think that's probably the first time we've noticed that since the restart. But can't argue with the point, to be fair, and obviously we could have won it, but I think we move on. We've got winnable games coming up, so
yeah. I just wanted to ask as well, can we bust this urban myth that the Merseyside derby is like one of the most hotly contested derbies to watch?
What do you think is then? What do you think is?
It's a snooze fest. It's an absolute snooze fest. I tell you, I would rather watch Aston. I'd rather watch Aston Villa v Birmingham than the Merseyside derby.
I think now that there's less to play for between the two clubs.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean as much for anyone else, but for Everton fans, for Liverpool fans, it does mean something. But I get what you mean. You know, there are more, Man City, Man United, where maybe they're both at the top end of the league, but Everton aren't really challenging Liverpool for much at the moment. So it's more personal pride, I think, than anything else. So it's a fair enough assessment, I think.
It is. And sorry, I just wanted to slip another one in as well. I'd chuck in the M25 derby as well. So that's Brighton. Be crystal.
Definitely not.
So Dan, I'm quickly going to come to you then. What did you make of Liverpool's performance today? Like, do you think it's just rust, or do you think it's like a continuation of what we saw before lockdown?
It's rust. It's rust, really. I think all of the teams who played their first game back have struggled to sort of play with that sort of same intensity. And I think, Liverpool's style of play, where they are so like gung-ho and pressing and that kind of thing, I think it was always going to be very difficult for them to come with that sort of intensity first game back, to be honest. I think they got Crystal Palace their next game. I think you'll see a much better Liverpool team. So if you're a Liverpool fan, the league's wrapped up anyway, so there's nothing to even worry about there at all.
I think they still pressed well, even though they weren't at their best. I mean, Everton, it was still so hard for Everton to play out. They still had that intensity. I mean, and again, you weren't at full strength. The Liverpool weren't at full strength either. So,
and to be honest, in saying that, we've got a comment here that it's always a boring game. Like, I think that's true as well. Like, I don't actually remember the last Merseyside derby that was like a high scoring, free end-to-end event. You know what I mean? It's
5-2 game was pretty.
How long ago was that though?
That was literally this season. That was this season.
I don't even remember it. That's how.
I don't blame you, to be honest. As I said, it sounds disrespectful, Lucas, but I genuinely think from the wider sort of football perspective, no one actually looks at this fixture and thinks, "Oh yeah, I can't miss this game." We know what's going to happen, and the thing is, I think, what's the record? Everton haven't beaten Liverpool in like
26, 27 games, I think, and I think that's why. I think Everton are so, they're so scared to keep losing these games, and it's just everyone's kind of thinks it's a done deal before it's even happened. So it's not much, and I think football is different now to what it was 10 years ago, where those derbies were everything, and it was big tackles and things, but you can't really do as much of that anymore. So it's that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
So Lucas, thanks for that as well. I'm going to keep you on as well, because I wanted to move on to another fixture involving a side who I'd probably say you could potentially be in a battle for like a top 10 spot. So Crystal Palace yesterday went to Bournemouth from 1-2-0. So before I come to you, Lucas, I'm actually going to come to you, Steve. So Steve, what are your predictions for Bournemouth? Because their first game back from since the lockdown, home advantage. This was pretty much a 6-pointer. They had to win today because they're facing Wolves, United, and Spurs in 3 of their next 4 fixtures. What does the future have in store for Bournemouth?
Yeah, they're a strange one. Bournemouth. I think earlier on in the season we were talking about them potentially going down, and I think we mentioned them going down every single season, and it hasn't happened thus far. And I think we were talking about how far can Eddie Howe actually take this team. Maybe he's taken them as far as they can go. And every time I look at Bournemouth, I don't know what I'm going to get. And I think more often than not these days, it seems like you're going to get a disappointing performance from them. The turnout they showed this week was poor. I'm looking at the table now. I think they are in a very precarious position because I think Norwich and Villa, to me, are dead certs to go down. But if I look at the teams above Bournemouth, I just think they've all got slightly more than Bournemouth. I think West Ham, between Bournemouth and West Ham, one of the two are going to go down. It's just whether West Ham can prevent themselves imploding, which, I mean, they tend to do anyway. So, yeah, I don't know who's going to go down out of the two, but my money would be on Bournemouth. I think West Ham have got a bit more quality to see them through.
So Lucas, I'm going to come to you next. So Crystal Palace now. Let me just quickly double check where they are in the table. But Crystal Palace now, another clean sheet away from home. 3 points in the bag. Jordan Ayew is having his best ever season. He's now the all-time Ghanaian top scorer in the Premier League now, 25 goals. Crystal Palace are actually up to 9th. They're level on points with top. So do you think that Roy Hodgson deserves more credit for the job that he's done with Crystal Palace ever since he's taken over the job?
Yeah, I mean, can't really lie about that position that they're sitting and say that shouldn't be the case. I think they're one of those weird teams that they're kind of always safe. So it's like, you know, they're not really pushing too much into the top 6, 7. But I think he's done a good job, and they've got some good players, and it's always a difficult game for anyone who goes there. So yeah, for sure, I think that, you know, he's done a fine job there.
Yeah, they're sitting above Arsenal, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And they are. And that's where we're going to go to. That's where we're going to go to next.
It's funny that when Toby was coming to that Palace game, and he's like, "Oh, a team you might be battling for top 10." I actually thought he was going to the Arsenal match.
But before we get onto Arsenal, Watford actually played out a 1-1 draw with another tame match, a 1-1 draw with Leicester. So Steve, in our group chat, there was the comments being bandied around Leicester possibly being pulled into this top 4 race. They've dropped points to Watford, and to be honest, I wasn't expecting them to go to Watford and win, lockdown or no lockdown. Do you think that they're now in a position where they're gonna be pulled into this battle? I think they're comfortably safe, irrespective of whether it's between Chelsea for 3rd and 4th?
I've been saying it for time. I think they're in this battle. I think they've not been in free fall, but I think since the turn of the year, I think there was a point where the gap from them to United was about 12 points, and I know it hasn't narrowed too much, but I really think with their recent results, I think they're in it. And I think on the final day, because I think United have got Leicester on the final day, you could find that it might be both of us vying for 4th. I just think that prior to the break, their squad wasn't much bigger than their first 11, and I don't think it is now. And I just think, again, any injury in this sort of run of fixtures where you've got a lot of games coming thick and fast, I think could derail their season completely. I think they're still 8 points above us at the minute, but yeah, I think that could change very quickly. So I still have them in, but I think that.
Thanks, Steve. Lucas, just one more before we let you go. You actually play Leicester at Goodison in, I think it's in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. How do you see that game panning out then? Because Steve's under the assumption that they're actually in this top 4 battle. I mean, they're in that sort of race for that 4th spot. Do you think that your team will definitely ensure that is the case in 2 weeks?
I mean, obviously, I hope so. I think hopefully I'd love to think that we can push on and hopefully get into the last spot of Europe. But it's about 6 points, I think, up to Sheffield United, and I think it's possible. We've got to play a few teams above us, and I think also depend on how teams like Man United and Chelsea can kind of kick on from their results. I think with Pogba back, the influence he had when he came on the other night, I think that they're definitely going to be right on their toes. So it could be, but I think it'll be exciting either way. But I think you'd like to think from the position they're in, they're not going to be 8 points. It seems a lot at this stage, so you'd like to think that they could hold on.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for coming on, Lucas. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Cheers, mate.
I'm sure we'll get you back on too. Cheers.
All the best.
Cheers. So before we actually get Dan from West Ham Fan TV on, I think it's now time to focus on Black Dan and Arsenal. In fact, you know what? Let me get Dan into this as well. How you doing, Dan?
Not bad. Like, hearing you guys talking about top 4 battle, and I thought, now I've come at the right time.
You know what? Because we wanted to. I thought, let's save you for the West Ham chat. But I said, let's get you in because obviously we want to talk about Arsenal now. So, Arsenal went away to Brighton yesterday. Brighton hadn't won a single match in the Premier League in 2020. Brighton have only won 3 of the last 20 matches, and 2 of them have been against Arsenal. Black Dan, explain to us your emotions after the game yesterday.
Mate, obviously I was fuming, but I couldn't. If I told you I was surprised, that would be a lie. You know what I'm saying? So, I've been saying it all season that our midfield is too weak, and if you tell me the script of the game is that a midfield of Guendouzi and Ceballos is going to get run ragged by Bissouma, I'll tell you, what are you expecting? Because these skinny runs are going to get stunned by anyone that you play in the Premier League in the centre midfield. There's maybe 2 or 3 teams that they could potentially dominate. But, mate, are you surprised?
No, Dan, I'm surprised. Yeah, I want a bit of analysis on Ceballos because obviously he's come from Real Madrid. After the first game he played, you were purring over his performance. Every Arsenal fan I saw on the streets purring over this guy's performance. I said, you guys relax. It's been 1 game. And to be honest, I was also impressed by that one performance, but I was a let it slip. And it's pleased me no end to see him free fall from grace. I don't get it. Why has he been so poor? What's happening?
I rate him. I think he's a good player. I
do actually think he's a good player personally. I think he's a really good player. I think the issue is that day we played a 3-man midfield. It's the only time all season we played a proper 3-man midfield of him, Willock, and I think Torreira started that match as well. And I don't think we've seen that midfield again since that game. And that had probably the most legs in Willock and Torreira that we have had all season, and they were protecting Ceballos. Ceballos, I think technically he's great, but as I was saying to Toby before we start recording, I don't actually know what we're getting from him in that midfield anymore. So if you ask you, does he defend? I'll say no. Does he create? I'll say no. Does he keep the ball? I'll say no. So as a midfielder, if you're not doing any of those 3 things, what are we losing if you're not playing? Do you know what I'm saying? And you can say the same of Guendouzi. You can say the same of Xhaka. You can say the same of whichever one of the midfielders that we put there. If you play Willock there, we don't even know when he's on the pitch. He gets 4 touches and a half. You know what I'm saying?
Dan, let me ask you this as well. So, Newcastle beat Sheffield United 3-0 today. John Joe Shelby started for them. He had a really good game for them. They've got the likes of Nabil Bentaleb in their team. Do you think that the likes of Newcastle, their midfield, some of their midfield players could easily start at Arsenal right now?
Mate, physically, I think physically you could take most of the centre mids in the Premier League over what you have at Arsenal, man. If you're looking at Crystal Palace today, who won, Milivojevic, look at his power that he's got in that centre mid. He's not going to get bossed by that easily by physically anyways, unless you have loads more tech than someone like him. you get what I'm saying? So it's like physically, our midfield is just so weak. Like, it doesn't matter how much tech you have as someone like Ceballos or Guendouzi when people are just running you off the park, and that's been happening for years. It's a joke.
Don't you think players seem to though regress at Arsenal over time? Because you look at a lot of players that you guys sign early on, people rave about them, whether it's Xhaka or Kolasinac, Lacazette, all of these players like Pepe, like everyone raves about them when you first sign them. First few games was, oh yeah, it's amazing. Then they become like, the proverbial red-headed stepchild of the club. Like so many players, Bellerin, everyone.
It's a culture thing. It's the culture thing at the club, personally. And I think lots of people keep saying it. Arteta's come in and said the culture needs to change at the club, because previously, when you joined that club, you had to impress because you had the likes of Henry's or Vieiras pushing you every day in training. Now, when you have an owner that says top 4's okay, all right, then top 6 is okay, all right, like we got a couple of FA Cups, like we're doing all right. If that's the standard, then of course, like if you can do and play and make mistakes like Xhaka and Mustafi do every other week, and you know that you're still going to start next week, why would you have any desire to improve? Do you get what I'm saying? The standards are not there at this club anymore, so you can't be surprised.
And I actually wanted to give some credit to Brighton as well, because obviously they've done the double over you now. Neil Maupay's also done the double as well. 2 and 2. He made some pretty interesting comments about your team, saying that some of your teammates, your squad members need to learn a lesson in humility. And you'd think a team like you, with your drastic downturn in fortunes, a team that just gets worse and worse every year, you'd think that you'd learn some humility, but clearly you have players like Guendouzi who think they can go around grabbing people's throats after putting a 3 out of 10 performance and then thinking nothing's going to happen to him.
I've been saying from day one that guy is overrated. I don't know why he thinks he's so good. How many times does he lose the ball in a match? Like, you see him lose the ball all the time. And I don't know why he's rated so. But like you said, he's got that feeling of like, I'm this big man and I'm so good. I can go around grabbing people's throats. He'd get slapped.
Because he's got talent. He's got talent, but he's so overrated.
You know what? If you had a dressing room with Roy Keane in him, he'd put him in place. He'd get him in place. Because he's not. One thing I can't understand is players who lack talent, but they're still going off as if they're like top dollar.
That's my main issue. Really, is that I don't mind the chat or the giving it, egging on your opponent with 1-0 up, giving them that chat in the ear, but close the match out and win the match, get the 3 points. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, he's done this 3 times now this season, where he's done the 2-1 at Watford, and then we've conceded, we've not come away with the 3 points. Doing it again, you've lost the match again today. And it's like, I was saying this to Toby as well, players like Henry, they used to talk the most on the pitch. They used to give it large in the ears, like talk all in players shit. You've seen Henry as a manager now, he's still not stopped calling his own players rubbish. But these lot, they walk the walk as well. They didn't just talk the talk, and that's the problem at Arsenal. They're giving it large, saying, "Oh yeah, we're the dog's bollocks," acting like you're the dog's bollocks. But actually, you're getting dominated in midfield every week, mate. Shut your mouth, put your head down, and work hard. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's a massive.
Yeah, but that's the thing, and that's where you lot need like some serious leadership and guidance. And to be honest, I think Arteta has a role there, a responsibility to kind of nip it in the bud. Because as a player that young, you should show a bit more humility, as Maupay has said, and just control yourself, calm yourself down. When you start winning stuff, then that's when you can start talking the talk. But
on that as well, I think obviously that's enough chat on Arsenal. So the last game I wanted to end with disclaimer as well for the people who are commenting. Guendouzi has got talent, but he just doesn't show it enough nowadays. And for all that talent, he's not doing it. He's not one of the best midfielders in the league. So don't talk about him like he's one of the best midfielders in the league. But now we got to get onto West Ham.
I was enjoying the Arsenal chat, man. I was hoping you just bringing me on it to talk about Arsenal.
So you lot obviously had your first game back since the lockdown. Obviously, not an easy game, to be honest, because you're playing up against a side who are still in the Europa League, still in contention for that top 4 spot. They've obviously come to your ground and they've beaten you 2-0. But what what actually disappointed you the most about that game? Because when I watched it, aside from that 4-1 chance in the first sort of like 15 minutes, West Ham had nothing. El Zippo. Like it was just a nothing performance. And for me, it didn't look like a side who were in a relegation battle. I saw that from West Ham and Bournemouth. So Dan, I wanted to get your view on what went right, what went wrong for you, and what your views are on David Moyes.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying, and it is that like we didn't really have anything, but neither did Wolves for most of the game. Like they weren't really creating chances, we weren't really creating chances. It was just both getting to the edge of each other's areas and not really doing much with it. What disappointed me the most was just the obvious fact that Traore was going to come on, and we knew exactly what was going to happen when he come on. And we didn't deal with it. Like everybody knew it. As soon as I saw he was on the bench, okay, they're going to bring him on late in the game to come and run us ragged and make things happen. And where's the game plan when that happens? Like we knew it was going to happen, and it was just as sure as clockwork. He come on almost straight away, gets an assist. Then he sets up the next assist for the second goal. And how can we not realize how to deal with this guy? Like he's not one of the best players in world football. He's a good player, but he's not this player that is completely unstoppable. Surely you can get a game plan. We had Dimitri Payet, and some teams figured him out.
I'd have to disagree because Adama beat like 4 players for that assist, and Adama, I would actually say he is one of very few players in this league who are unstoppable. When he has the ball at his feet, you genuinely need a juggernaut lorry to try and stop him.
I'm not gonna lie. I genuinely think he's probably like, if he's on form, I think he's probably one of the most unplayable players. Like,
so you don't think there's any tactics, any setup, or whether it's a case of doubling up, tripling up, or anything that you can do? You're saying whether you're Barca, Bayern,
not with your manager at the helm.
That's what I mean. He's not tactical. He's not tactical minded. Like this is the thing. I feel like if we had Traore, I feel like if he was playing for us, teams would end up sussing him out and play him out of the game. Like Antonio is a very similar player. Is a very similar player to Traore. I think Traore. Just wait. Not just wait.
It's like a pound shop version, man.
Yeah, but early. If you would have seen early Antonio when we first signed him, he was that guy who would take players on. He was, one-on-ones, all of that, run down the wing, everything. I mean, like Traore is built like no one I've ever seen. Like, geez, he looks like a boxer or something. Like his arms, like he looks like a heavyweight boxer. But I'm just saying, like. It was so, yeah, no, but no, I just think coming, like, this geezer's a unit, but how can we not figure out how to deal with this guy at all? Not even a little bit. Like, it didn't take him long. It just literally came on and just walked through our midfield like it was nothing. And that's what disappointed me.
He's done that to better teams than West Ham, though, this season as well. Like, you've seen him, like, dispatch Man City twice, I think, this season already. So, I think that's a bit harsh to say that not having a plan. I think I agree you should have a plan, but it might like not necessarily come off all the time against the player.
Okay, so check this. What about this plan then? What about this plan? You know that they're gonna come on. When he comes on, you're on the back foot, he's gonna throw everything at you, right? So how about you go attacking? You start the game attacking. He's on the bench. Let's go for it. Let's try and get a goal. Let's try and get 2 goals early on. Let's just throw everything because we know when he comes on, we haven't got a plan to deal with this guy. So let's try and get some early goals. But we didn't. We set up 2 defensive. They started with two up front. We started with 1 up front. And again, it's just the same old crap. And that's what frustrates me. Moyes' substitutions, awful. Like, we go 1-0 down, he brings on right back. Like, you know what I mean? No, really, like, there was no sense of, like, shit, we need to throw everything. I'm like, go to Arsenal, right? At least Arsenal, and whatever manager it is, right? When they go a goal down or something, or they concede, they're like, right, let's throw all our attackers on. Let's just try and make something happen. They used to be that team. I used to always call them the jammiest club in the league, right? Jammiest team in the league, because they just throw on a load of attackers when they're behind, and they would just nick it at the end, right? But we don't do that. We just was like, yeah, let's bring this right back on, and like, really,
it's a good thing you mentioned subs as well, because obviously that's where, like you said, David Moyes didn't react. And for me, I hate managers who can see the tide turning in matches and can see, like, you can see this change is going to lose me this match, and you don't want to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Nuno Santo, he brought on those two subs. He brought on Neto and Adama. He didn't come there to get a point. He went there to get 3 points, and that sort of brings me back to my first point. West Ham did not make the decisions or play like a team that were in a relegation battle, because Wolves, they still have a lot to play for, and it showed with those substitutions and the eventual 3 points.
Yes.
I wanted to come to you as well for Wolves. What is their limit this season? Because they're still in the Europa League. I think they're now 3 or 4 points ahead of us. I'm sure they're above you now, aren't they?
No, they're level on points.
They're level on points. Sorry, they're level on points with you now. What is a realistic finish for Wolves this season?
Yeah, for me, I'll have a bit of that drink, Dan.
Yeah, do you know what? I was down in this during the game. I got a bit left. It's tough times being a West Ham fan.
Tough time never lasts. Yeah, for me with Wolves, I think obviously prior to this break, they played 50 games or so. They were due to run out of steam. I think this break has allowed them to get a bit of rest, and I think, to me, I wouldn't even be looking at the Premier League finish. I think with the way the Europa is going to be set up now, with the way it's going to be like quick knockouts, I think, and obviously you don't have home advantage, I think they should be looking to try and go as far as they can in that. I think it's one of the rare opportunities they'll probably have to possibly compete real deep in that league. So yeah, I'd be throwing all my eggs into there, given the congestion of the fixtures. So yeah, I think Wolves they've got good goal threat, they've got good setup, good team. So yeah, they should just be trying to go as far.
They've shown you how to do it right. This is what annoys me, is that you see them, the way they've built their team, right? The way that they've backed the manager and they've built an identity, and now they've come and leapfrogged us. Like, that should have been what we was doing. That was all the talk our owners were giving. And now for us to now look at Wolves and they come to us and like completely take the piss, it's so frustrating, because it's just like, that's how it can be done right. We just buy random players and don't care about an identity or what position. Like, if they're a complete team, it's just
the thing that you say about them building a team as well. Like, you look at players like Pedro Neto, even that Daniel Podence that they bought. Like, even though he's just made a few cameos off the bench, like all of them look like they fit. It's never like, oh, they need time to bed in. Like Pedro Neto, he's come in and he's hit the ground running. Like, it's like he's been playing at Wolves for 3-4 seasons. You know what I mean?
They've got their whole academy set up to play that 3-5-2 as well. So it's like right all the way through the team, first team down to academy level. They're all thinking in one sort of philosophy.
So same as Liverpool.
Yeah. So Dan, I think sort of the last point I wanted to make before we end the podcast. So you've got us next. I don't really want to talk about that game because I think we're personally going to win, but I don't really want to give my reasons why. But you've got us next, and then you've got Chelsea at home. How many points out of 6 do you see West Ham getting?
Do you know what? It's so hot. Like, if it was normal circumstances, I'd say, okay, 3 minimum. I could see us winning one of those games. And maybe if I'm feeling good, 4. Like, one's at your ground, the other one's at home. However, I was saying this on a Tottenham podcast. I don't know if the fact that there's no fans in the stadium is going to take out that whole derby vibe. You know, they say form goes out of the window on a derby, and West Ham always turn up against Spurs.
Of course.
Without the fans, it's like, as you guys like to say, it's, our players know the importance of a derby. That's what I'm going to say. But like, are we going to? Is the derby still going to be the same? It's the same vibe. Are we going to turn up? But without the fans there, it's just going to be like any other game. So it's hard to judge like what we're going to. If I was to say now, based on that Wolves game, I'd say 0. But you never know with West Ham. I'm going to be very interested. Like the Tottenham game, the performance in the Tottenham game is going to tell me how we're going to do in the Chelsea game. We turn up, at least, even if we lose and turn up, I feel like, you know what, we might get something from Chelsea. Obviously, we beat them at their ground earlier in the season. It's tough. We could have Ogbonna back for the game against you guys, which was a big miss. Then Rice could go in the midfield. Nobles was a bit tired. And I think we could have a better starting 11. So I think we could get a draw. Kane, he isn't looking so fresh. He's really not looking up to his usual standards.
Yeah, he's rusty.
Let him. Hopefully, he stays rusty. Let him stay rusty.
We don't need him at his best to beat you, to be honest. So
that's the problem. You've got like Son and all of that sort of things there.
So it'll be interesting anyway. But thank you for coming on, and for those who are still watching, thank you for joining us. Well, we've got a special podcast coming out tomorrow, so we'll check out. Just be on the lookout for our socials tomorrow morning. We'll be back on Wednesday, I think.
But yeah, we're not getting a rest, mate. We're recording. We've non-stop, like 5 times this week. I'm tired of seeing you lot crazy.
Work rate. Hashtag work rate. Yeah.
Non-stop. So we'll be back. We'll be back in 2 or 3 days to cover the next round, the next sort of early round of fixtures anyway. But Dan, thank you for coming on. For those who are still listening, make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe on Tapping Football on all social platforms. And we'll be back soon.
Peace.
Cheers. Brilliant.